Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change and things adjacent. Meant to put a video out last night, but I ended up just doing a lot of communicating with people directly on the phone. Whoa, that's a weird thing for some people. But it was a good thing for me. And so, yeah, I just had a lot of good interactions with people yesterday, which I needed and I'm happy about. And so I had to actually go to sleep and delay this video until today. Blah, 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 blah. So I wanted to quickly talk about, it's really interesting to me. I'm always a little bit amazed that we just kind of accept the evolution of technology, just, matter of fact, that there's technology happening and AI is coming and 5G is coming and all this stuff. And we're just like, okay, tell me when it happens. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of resistance to this, or a lot of people talking about opting out or ways to opt out, or ways to not partake in this, technological evolution that seems to be so inevitable. And to which many people are attaching very dire consequences, very frightening consequences as to what these technologies are going to bring. So we already have AI in the form of algorithms and things that and bots and things that are able to operate self-sufficiently and kind of do their own thing. Excuse me. Although AI is not necessarily an algorithm, can't be described as AI necessarily. It's just a program that sees something and makes a reaction to it. It's not necessarily thinking on its own, but it is doing it is automated thinking, if you will, or an automated reaction to something. I want to talk about, I guess, awareness, human awareness. We seem to be missing this component in our lives, in our operations, in how we go forward as a species. And we're gaining awareness because we have this technology, because we have access to information. But is it making people smarter, better, do better things, make better choices? Personally, I think that we're slowly getting there. We're capable of having our awareness heightened because of our evolution, our progress, but it's painfully slow, and it is constantly being blocked and misdirected and taken down by obviously the people that don't want you aware. Why are we putting our faith and hope and resources into yet another technology outside of ourselves? We have so much information at our fingertips, and yet we haven't yet figured out how to figure out a better course for humanity. Do we see AI as something or someone who will make better decisions for us because we can't? God, politicians, spiritual and social leaders couldn't save us, so how about AI? I'm afraid we won't like AI's answers either. Again, we can't control ourselves. Something else will control us and we won't like it. Why not Mother Nature? Oh yeah, we've been fighting with her for thousands of years. This is why we are where we are. You can't tell me what to do, Mother Nature. You can't tell me it's time to die, or that there is balance in all of life, that I can't do something to upset that balance. I'm going to do whatever I want because I have a big brain. Or I believe in God. Is AI going to have the same constraints or the same logic? Guess what? AI runs on energy. Unless there's a perpetual energy machine out there that's self-maintaining, AI won't be able to weather peak oil either. Who controls AI is the better question. As with every great invention meant to help man, the most likely use for AI is weaponry. Any positive direction for it will be marginalized and or commodified to the point that it won't be very useful at all, if not downright destructive. Look at social media algorithms. They are already being used to suppress ideas, viewpoints, and marginalize dissenting opinions. By the way, make sure to resubscribe to this channel if you get kicked off, because people are getting kicked off. That's one of the ways AI is making our lives better already. Why not invest in figuring out how to make people better? Humans, as in turn off the destructive programming that's been plaguing us for centuries. Here's a hint. It starts with being a little less selfish and a little more aware. So I wanted to dive into this article from Robert Hunziker from Counterpunch. Proud Hun, I think, sent me this. Thank you. Is Paris 2015 already underwater? This is from today. The Paris Agreement of 2015 remarkably brought together all of the nations of the world, except for the United States, after Trump canceled, in a concerted effort to combat the dire consequences of global warming, which on a worst case basis could lead to human extinction, although not many climate scientists discuss that possibility, but it really could happen. But then again, when? Meanwhile, the Paris Agreement is constantly being scrutinized because it is well understood that if the science about the timing of not exceeding 1.5 C or maybe 2 C is correct, then humanity doesn't have many shots or much time at fixing this monster before it grows totally out of control. And then human extinction will reluctantly need to be factored into climate models for the first time ever. Nobody wants that to happen. Meantime, climate complexities as they relate to the agreement are starting to throw poison darts at the Paris 2015 agreement and hitting bullseyes. After all, since the very beginning, the agreement was not on solid footing. As for example, Dr. James Hansen, one of the world's foremost climate scientists, nailed it when, immediately on the heels of the climate accord, he said, "It's a fraud, really, a fake. It's just bullshit." The famous or infamous, depending upon one's viewpoint, Paris Agreement uses linear relationships in calculating cumulative CO2 emissions and global temps, with the goal of holding temp increases to less than 2 C vis-a-vis pre-industrial, but preferably below 1.5 C. Otherwise, all hell breaks loose. Disconcertingly, some climate scientists take issue with the data assumptions in Paris 2015 as way too timid. See postscript for alarming current status report on atmospheric CO2. In that regard, a new study has already plugged some of the holes in the Paris Agreement, or maybe drilled new holes by looking at non-linear feedback phenomena of CO2 and methane emissions via permafrost, which is seldom, if ever, considered in projections of future global warming. For example, the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis recently published in Nature Geoscience, TGAS et al., path-dependent reductions in CO2 emission budgets caused by permafrost carbon release, Nature Geoscience. The upshot of the study's inclusion of permafrost into Paris emission budgets demonstrates that Paris climate targets might, most likely will be exceeded sooner than expected. There's that phrase again. That's not good, especially for policymakers, meaning nation states which use Paris 2015 as a roadmap for cutting CO2 emissions. Significantly, the IIASA study is not crying wolf. Aesop's fable, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, is nowhere near to be found in this grisly tale. Above and beyond the IIASA study, the UK Center for Ecology and Hydrology also published a study, July 2018, Edwards Coleman Platt et al., carbon budgets for 1.5 and 2C targets lowered by natural wetland and permafrost feedbacks, Nature Geoscience. Somewhere similar to IIASA's findings, the Center for Ecology and Hydrology analyzed wetlands and permafrost, concluding global fossil fuel emissions will have to be reduced by up to 20% more than previous estimates to achieve Paris temp targets because of natural greenhouse gas emissions from permafrost. Arithmetically, a reduction of 20% is equivalent to 5 to 6 years of current human-caused carbon emissions. That's a lot. Hence, it throws off calculations for every country's voluntary plans to cut emissions. Paris 2015 cuts are voluntary, not mandated. Oh well, c'est la vie. As such, nations to the agreement need to get back to the drawing board. Will they? And as further dispensing of the boy who cried wolf analogy, a third permafrost study was released September 4th, 2018, Sarakova et al. High riverine CO2 emissions at the permafrost boundary of Western Siberia, Nature Geoscience. The study demonstrates how Western Siberian rivers actually process and release a large portion of the carbon received from degrading permafrost, an unexpected finding that emphasizes how changes in the Arctic exert strong negative influence on the climate system with far-reaching consequences for the world. All of the above-mentioned deficiencies in the science utilized for the Paris Agreement makes the original analysis suspect, or when looked at from another angle, gives the entire agreement a bad odor. In other words, by all appearances, if nations actually follow the precepts of Paris 2015, they'll come up short. Not good and extremely perilous. The Paris 2015 complexities are only too obvious, and as such, it is incumbent upon the nations of the world to achieve much, much deeper cutbacks than ever realized in CO2 emissions, as well as remove CO2 from the atmosphere, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, but who knows. In order to prevent the onset of a hothouse planet scorching crops across the mid-latitudes and thus forcing humanity into a massive panic mode that would likely make the French Revolution look like a cakewalk. Back in the day, 18th century, heads rolled by the thousands, elite aristocrats, which were standout targets at the time, along with the Place de la Concorde, where today the obelisk of Luxor marks one of humanity's bloodiest spots of final resting. Valhalla is going to be in there somewhere. Heads will roll. I might be with you over there, Val. After all, somebody has to pay the price when society turns upside down because of massive starvation that drives humanity into a state of utter madness. Unfortunately for rich people, their gated communities happen to be low-hanging fruit and easy, predictable targets for release of pent-up anger by masses toppling iron gates, similar to the storming of the Bastille, 1789. Sorry, but that's just the way it is when the going gets rough and tough with starving, pissed off people. Of interest, all of today's teeth gnashing over global warming was foreseen as far back as 1975 by Wally Brecker, Columbia Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, whose paper in August 1975, Are We on the Brink of a Pronounced Global Warming?, published in Science, I guess it's the journal Science, was the first official use of the term global warming, as he correctly predicted, and global warming is still actually the most apropos title for what's happening. As he correctly predicted an overall 20th century global warming of 0.8 C due to CO2, and he worried about the consequences for agriculture and sea level rise, meaning more trouble to come in the 21st century. How does Brecker weigh in on today's global warming juggernaut? Here's Brecker, the grandfather of global warming, quoted in 2017. In the 1950s, when I was in graduate school, we got 15% of our energy from renewables and nuclear, and 85% from fossil fuels. Today, it's the same. Both of them have been increasing at 3% a year. renewables and nuclear are not changing in the percentage share. And in order to stop the CO2 from rising, we have to go to a factor of 10 reduction in fossil fuel burning, at least a factor of 10. And that means changing all the world's infrastructure. That's a Bunyan-esque task. Is the world up to it? So far, in spite of the worldwide agreement to do something to prevent global warming's most destructive potential, or God forbid, human extinction, the outlook as of today is downright dismal. In fact, really lousy. Prepare to batten down the hatches. See postscript. In a nutshell, the rate of CO2 growth over the last decade is 100 to 200 times faster than what the Earth experienced during the transition from the last ice age. Peter Tans, lead scientist of NOAA's Global Greenhouse Gas Reference Network, commenting, "This is a real shock to the atmosphere. Wait till the aftershock hits humanity." Postscript. What does the data tell us? It shows that all is not well in the state of the atmosphere. In order to prevent further warming, the carbon dioxide levels must not grow any further on the growth curve. This corresponds to the curve having to settle down to a -0 ppm per year. There's absolutely no hint in the data that this is happening. On the contrary, the rate of growth is itself growing, having now reached about 2.3 parts per million a year, the highest growth rate ever seen in modern times. This is not just a business as usual scenario. It is worse than that. We're actually moving backwards, becoming more and more unsustainable with every year. This shows unequivocally that the efforts undertaken so far to limit greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide are woefully inadequate. That's from Carl Edward Rasmussen, University of Cambridge, September 14th, 2018. Yeah, we all know it doesn't look good. And if you all watched the collapse video that I linked in my last video, there are multiple problems converging to make the situation really, really bad. And I think in that video, they stated something like renewables were only, I don't know if it included nuclear or not, but renewables were only like in the 1 percentile of energy worldwide, globally. So we're not close to a transition. We're not close to tipping the scales. We're not, we're trying, but it's just too slow and too little, and hopefully not too late, but it's looking more that way. Obviously, Trump pulling us out of the Paris Accord isn't helping on a on a visual front, on a a commitment to look at the problem or tackle the problem or change the problem. But the Paris Agreement isn't going to do it for us. That doesn't mean that it's totally fine for Trump to pull out. Trump is propping up the economy based on basically externalizing everything that we've been externalizing, all the costs for the last 100 years or whatever. So he's just recycling that model, or firming up that model so that the economy looks good, but it cannot and will not last. It's absolutely a false recovery. It's a false economy. It's based on degrading the environment. It's based on pumping money into things that are ultimately going to be our downfall. So that is not the way to go, obviously. And don't for those who are happy about the economy, I know nobody on this channel cares, but there are other people out there that are like, oh my God, look, 4% growth. Eat that, Obama, or whatever. Like there's people out there that think that this is, just a year's economic growth is somehow, great for humanity. A little bit longer view might be helpful. Moving on to something that Imogen posted. This is from Russia, Climate Change Russia, September 20th. In the last few years, the Vavilov ice cap in the Russian high Arctic has dramatically accelerated, sliding as much as 82 feet a day in 2015, according to a new multinational, multi-institute study led by CIRRUS fellow Mike Willis, an assistant professor of geology at CU Boulder, that dwarfs the ice's previous average speed of about 2 inches per day and has challenged scientists' assumptions about the stability of the cold ice caps dotting Earth's high latitudes. In a warming climate, glacier acceleration is becoming more and more common, but the rate of ice loss at Vavilov is extreme and unexpected, said Mike Willis, CIRRUS fellow and lead author of the paper published this week in Earth and Planetary Science Letters. Glaciers and ice caps like Vavilov cover nearly 300,000 square miles of Earth's surface and hold about a foot of potential sea level rise, only a foot. Scientists have never seen such acceleration in this kind of ice cap before. And the authors of the new paper wrote that their finding raises the possibility that other currently stable ice caps may be more vulnerable than expected. For the new assessment, researchers played the part of forensic ice detectives, piecing together the ice cap's deterioration by spying on the advancing ice with remote sensing technology from a constellation of satellites operated by Digital Globe Inc., headquartered in Westminster, Colorado. The project also relied on support from the National Science Foundation and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, which funded the development of high-resolution topographic maps of the Arctic. By satellite, they watched ice on the cap creep slowly forward for several years before it accelerated slowly in 2010, surging rapidly forward in 2015. I think they meant to say accelerated. The initial very slow advance is thought to have been caused by a shift in the direction of precipitation that occurred about 500 years ago. Before this time, snow and rain came from the southeast. After this time, rain and snow came from the southwest. As the western part of the ice cap advanced into the ocean, the ice surged forward. Cold ice caps like Vavilov occur in polar deserts with very little precipitation, and they're normally frozen to their beds, flowing only due to bending of the ice under the force of gravity. With beds above sea level, they are normally insulated from the kinds of changes that have hit glaciers in less frigid regions, melting from below by warm seawater, for example, or sliding faster when the warm surface meltwater drains to the bed of the ice. Researchers suspect the ice cap began to dramatically advance when the bottom of the ice cap became wetter and the front of the glacier advanced onto very slippery marine sediments. The ice cap began to speed up, and friction caused some of the ice underneath the glacier to melt, which supplied more water to the bottom of the ice, reducing friction, which caused the ice to speed up, which in turn, again, produced more water. Some of this water might have combined with the clay underneath the glacier. Well, I'm not timing this. Reducing the friction beneath the glacier even further and allowing the truly extraordinary sliding speeds to occur. By 2015, the sediments in the rock at the bed beneath the ice had become so slippery that the material couldn't stop the ice from flowing. It took just 2 years for the ice cap base to reach that tipping point, transforming into a near frictionless zone, which is well lubricated and highly mobile. The glacier continues to slide today at accelerated speeds of 5 to 10 meters per day. The Vavilov ice cap thinned by a total of a few meters, advancing about 2 kilometers and lost about 1.2 kilometers cubed in total volume into the ocean in the 30 years before the speed up. 1.2 kilometers cubed. Before the speed of in 1 year between 2015 and 2016, the ice advanced about 4 kilometers and thinned by about 100 meters. The ice cap lost about 4.5 kilometers cubed of ice, enough to cover Manhattan with about 250 feet of water, or the entire state of Washington with an inch. And it's unlikely the ice cap will ever be able to recover ice mass in today's warming climate. The paper states, many scientists have assumed that polar ice caps that sit above the sea level will only respond slowly to a warming climate. But the authors of the study urged that this assumption be questioned. The rapid collapse of the Vavilava ice cap has significant ramifications for glaciers in other polar regions, especially those fringing Antarctica and Greenland. We've never seen anything like this before. The study has raised as many questions as it has answered, said Willis, and we're now working on modeling the whole situation to get a better handle of the physics involved. Lastly, I'm going to read this. I actually saw this on the TV this morning and went to go find an article about it. This is from Greece. A town in Greece is draped in thousands of spider webs. And guess why? It sounds like something out of a horror movie, a town covered in thousands of webs, each crawling with hordes of spiders. But for the residents of a town in Greece, it's a spooky reality. In recent days, the webs have draped plants, trees, and boats along the lagoon and Ayatoliko, a town of canals that's otherwise known as Greece's Little Venice. Giannakopoulos noticed the veil of webs earlier this week and captured the spider creations with his camera. It's natural for this area to have insects. No one is really worried, he told CNN, but I have never seen any spider webs this big in my life. The phenomenon is rare, although the webs have appeared before in other parts of the country. According to arachnologist Maria Chitsaki, they're always from the same type of spider, the Tetragnantha spider, or genus, a tiny critter no longer than 2 centimeters, or 0.7 inches. Chitsaki told CNN the webs often turn into sheet-like covers that are home to thousands of spiders living underneath. Greek biologist Fotis Pergantis, president of the Messalongi National Lagoon Park, said there's a simple explanation. Behind the phenomenon, Pergantis said that are the spider's favorite snacks, gnats. Small mosquito-like insects with a lifespan of 2 to 3 days, gnats use most of their existence to reproduce. They thrive in hot, humid temperatures and continue to reproduce during that time. And since temperatures in Ayatoliko lately have been ideal for gnats, Pergantis said there has been a whole lot of reproduction going on. When these temperatures last long enough, we can see a second, third, and fourth generation of the gnats and end up with large amounts of their population, he said. With the growth of gnat population, the spiders also thrive and multiply. It's the simple prey-predator phenomenon, Pergantis said. It's the ecosystem's natural reaction, and once the temperatures begin to drop and the gnat population die out, the spider population will decrease as well. Neither the gnats nor these spiders are dangerous to humans, but Ayatoliko residents will need to do a lot of dusting. So what they actually didn't say anything about in this article, and what they did say in the TV spot I saw about it, was that this is caused by a heat wave, high temperatures in Greece, and neither of them linked this to climate change on any level. But this is the kind of stuff, obviously, we will see in the future, either more or less insects due to heat effects, depending on the region, depending on what's happening. It's also happening to other animals. This is also happening to human beings, or affecting human beings in adverse ways. But I just thought I'd read that interesting phenomenon in Greece. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.